tap along because you'll get your own borrowed benefits from this. And so you say you've got a fear of public speaking. Yep, so already did you see that? So
I think it's a discomfort. It's
a
very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's just start with that. Even though I've got this uncomfortable feeling.
Even though I've got this uncomfortable feeling.
When I think about public speaking.
When I think about public speaking.
I accept myself.
I accept myself.
And this response.
And this response.
Deeply and completely.
Deeply and completely.
Even though I've got this uncomfortable feeling.
Even though I've got this uncomfortable feeling.
When I think about me public speaking.
When I think about me public speaking.
I accept myself deeply and completely.
I accept myself deeply and completely.
Even though I've got this fear of public speaking.
Even though I've got this fear of public speaking.
And it's really uncomfortable.
And it's really uncomfortable.
I accept myself deeply and completely.
I accept myself deeply and completely.
This uncomfortable feeling.
This uncomfortable feeling.
When I think about public speaking.
When I think about public speaking.
Me public speaking.
Me public speaking.
This uncomfortable feeling.
This uncomfortable feeling.
So where do you feel that in your body? This uncomfortable feeling.
Probably chest. I think.
This uncomfortable feeling in my chest.
This uncomfortable feeling in my chest.
When I'm public speaking.
When I'm public speaking.
This uncomfortable feeling in my chest.
This uncomfortable feeling in my chest. And also tightness in my throat.
And tightness in my throat.
And tightness in my throat.
When I think about public speaking.
When I think about public speaking.
Okay. So I didn't do a subs at the start of that uncomfortable feeling.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about it now, did you see that big deep breath again?
Yeah.
That uncomfortable feeling
in
your chest and in your throat.
That uncomfortable feeling in my chest and throat.
Yeah. What is it out of 10?
If I were to rate it before, I would have said 10.
Mm-hmm. And now?
Maybe less.
A little bit
Probably
less.
7.
Mm-hmm. And is there a time in your life when you can remember having that uncomfortable
So
feeling?
in early primary school, we have to do show and tell.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to do it, and
So how old do you think you were?
grade 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So even though I remember
being
in grade 2 or 3,
being in grade 2 or 3,
and I had to do show and tell,
and I have to do show and tell,
and I really didn't want to do it,
I didn't want to do it.
and I've still got that uncomfortable feeling
I've still got that uncomfortable feeling
in my chest and my throat.
in my chest and my throat.
I accept myself deeply and completely.
I accept myself deeply and completely.
So see how I did that as a really long one? That uncomfortable feeling
That uncomfortable feeling
in my throat and my chest.
in my throat and my chest.
When I remember being in grade 2 or 3,
When I remember being in grade 2 or 3,
when I had to do show or tell,
when I had to do show and tell,
and I really didn't want to.
I didn't want to.
And I can still feel that grade 2 or 3 feeling in my body.
I can still feel that grade 2 or 3 feeling in my body.
Still trapped in my chest and my throat.
Still trapped in my chest and my throat.
That uncomfortable feeling.
That uncomfortable feeling.
I really didn't want to do it.
I didn't want to do it.
I didn't want to be in front of the whole grade
I didn't want to be in front of the whole grade.
doing show and tell.
Doing show and tell.
So coming back to here, so see I added a little bit in that wasn't her words, but I'm still using her exact words, and I'm imagining her being in grade 2 or 3, out in front, having to do show and tell in front of the whole grade. Is that right?
Yeah.
So I also usually say to people before I start is, you know, if I say something that you don't agree with, then don't say it and change it to make it the words that you want to use. So every now and then I do a little bit of fishing, but I'm not going off track too much. It's like imagining what I can see and seeing if it's landing with you.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about that grade 2 or 3 experience.
No, what's coming up more specifically is the seen and not heard philosophy of our family.
Okay. And do you remember a time
As a
when
child.
that came up? Like a specific memory when that came up?
No, other than perhaps my parents being at a dinner party, and we used to have a station wagon, and so the kids were in the back of the station wagon with their mattresses because there was no babysitters in those days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so we would, you know, muck around and sleep in the car and whatever. So it was more the seen and not heard.
Mm-hmm.
It was they could go to the party, but we had to stay in the car.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so even though My family had that the children should be seen and not heard philosophy.
Even though my family had that children should be seen and not heard philosophy.
And I can remember sleeping in the back of the station wagon
And I can remember sleeping in the back of the station wagon
and mucking around
while
while Mum and Dad went out.
Mum and Dad went out.
And I think it's got something to do with grade 2 and 3
And I think it's got something to do with grade 2 and 3.
about children should be seen and not heard.
And children should be seen and not heard.
I accept myself
I accept myself
and all my feelings
and all my feelings
deeply and completely.
deeply and completely.
My family's philosophy.
My family's philosophy.
Children should be seen and not heard.
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 Even when Mum and Dad went out,
Even when Mum and Dad went out,
there were no babysitters.
there were no babysitters.
We'd have a mattress in the back of the station wagon
We'd have a mattress in the back of the station wagon
and muck around
and muck around
and go to sleep.
and go to sleep.
But we had to be not even seen.
We had to be not even seen.
So see how I went fishing then, because my mind is saying they're in the station wagon, they're not even seen, let alone being not heard. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah. And we must have been, whatever, six or seven, to be grade 2 or 3. It must have been about that age, I imagine. So, yeah.
I was about 6 or 7.
I was about 6 or 7.
We were supposed to be seen and not heard.
We were supposed to be seen and not heard.
But maybe not even seen as well.
But maybe not even seen as well.
So when I say that, not even seen as well,
Not even seen as well. That's not as that doesn't resonate as much as not having a voice.
not having a voice. Okay.
Yeah.
So see how I'm going with fishing with things, but also asking for her response for it.
Yeah.
So when you say not having a voice, what comes up for you for that? Is there a memory when you felt you didn't have a voice?
Not specifically, but it goes along with the seen and not heard.
All right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
even though
I
I can't specifically find a memory,
can't specifically find a memory,
but it goes along with being seen and not heard.
but it goes along with being seen and not heard.
I don't have a voice.
I don't have a voice.
I accept myself
I accept myself
and this 6 or 7-year-old belief
and this 6 or 7-year-old belief
that I learned from my parents
that I learnt from my parents
deeply and completely.
deeply and completely.
Even though I've still got this seen and not be heard,
Even though I've still got this seen and not be heard,
I've got no voice,
I've got no voice.
6 or 7-year-old belief
6 or 7-year-old belief
that I learned from my parents,
that I learnt from my parents,
still trapped in my body.
still trapped in my body.
I accept myself deeply and completely.
I accept myself deeply and completely.
My family's philosophy
My family's philosophy
was to be seen and not heard,
was to be seen and not heard,
and I didn't have a voice.
and I didn't have a voice.
No wonder I was scared at show and tell.
No wonder I was scared at show and tell.
That grade 2 experience.
That grade 2 experience.
I don't have a voice.
I don't have a voice.
No wonder I was scared.
No wonder I was scared.
I learned that I don't have a voice.
I learnt that I don't have a voice.
You've got to be seen and not heard.
You've got to be seen and not heard.
It's coming up. Got to be seen and not heard.
What's coming up is when I did do a presentation, I was really nervous for it, and it was awful. It was when you do give a presentation and someone is nervous, it's very uncomfortable to watch. So that's probably what.
So when you say it's uncomfortable to watch somebody nervous when they're doing a presentation,
Yep.
do you remember seeing somebody doing the presentation and it was uncomfortable to watch?
No, it would have been when I did my presentation, I was very nervous.
Right.
It made other people feel uncomfortable.
Okay. Right, so see that's a new aspect, but I was getting it straight in my head. Alright, so we'll finish this one and go back to the karate chop. So the new aspect is, so say it again for me,
That when I gave a presentation and was very nervous, I made other people uncomfortable.
And do you have an age when that happened?
I would have been at uni.
So even though I've got
Early
this,
20.
yeah. So even though I've got this memory,
Even though I've got this memory,
when I was about 20,
when I was about 20
at uni,
at uni,
And I had to do a presentation,
and I had to do a presentation.
and I was really nervous
I was really nervous,
and aware that I was making other people uncomfortable.
and I was aware that I was making other people uncomfortable.
And it's got something to do with grade 2
It's got something to do with grade 2
and being seen and not heard
and being seen and not heard
and not having a voice.
and not having a voice.
I accept myself,
I accept myself,
and all these things I learned
and all these things I learned
deeply and completely.
deeply and completely.
I was about 20
I was about 20
at uni.
at uni.
I was really nervous
I was really nervous
doing this presentation,
doing this presentation,
and I was aware I was making other people uncomfortable
and I was aware I was making other people uncomfortable
because I was so nervous,
because I was so nervous.
and I was getting some of it wrong.
I was getting some of it wrong. My voice wasn't. My voice wasn't. Was very nervous
My
and shaky.
voice was very nervous and shaky. So see, I went fishing, but I do that with a question mark. My voice was very nervous and shaking,
My voice was very nervous and shaking,
and I was really aware of it.
and I was really aware of it.
All those nerves
All those nerves
coming out in my voice.
coming out in my voice.
My voice was very shaky,
My voice was very shaky,
nervous and shaky in my voice.
nervous and shaky in my voice.
Aware that I'm making other people uncomfortable
I was aware that I was making other people uncomfortable
because of my nervous, shaky voice.
because of my nervous, shaky voice.
Because you've got to be seen and not heard.
Because you've got to be seen and not heard.
You're not allowed to have a voice.
You're not allowed to have a voice.
That's my family's philosophy.
Never learn a strong one.
Hmm?
Never learn a strong one.
Never learn.
Never mind a strong voice.
No, never mind a strong voice.
Strong voice, yeah.
Never mind a strong voice. No wonder my voice was shaky.
No, no wonder my voice was shaky and nervous.
Mm-hmm. So back to here. So when you think about the grade 2 experience versus the 20-year-old experience, which one's holding more energy?
Probably the 20-year-old one now, yeah.
Mhm. And when you talk about that 20-year-old experience now, has it come down from when we first started talking about it?
Yep, so there's probably a 6.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
where is it now that you're feeling that nervous, shaky voice and making other people uncomfortable?
There's tightness in the throat.
Even though
Even though
I've still got this tightness in my throat,
I've still got this tightness in my throat
with this nervous, shaky voice,
with this nervous, shaky voice,
making other people uncomfortable.
making other people uncomfortable.
Never mind a strong voice.
Never mind a strong voice.
I accept myself
I accept myself
and all my reactions
and all my reactions
to my family's philosophy.
to my family's philosophy.
I learned it well.
I learned it well.
And whatever I learned, I can unlearn.
Whatever I learned, I can unlearn.
I accept myself deeply and completely.
I accept myself deeply and completely.
My family's philosophy,
My family's philosophy,
they taught me well.
they taught me well.
I learnt well.
I learned well.
I learnt in grade 2
I learned in grade 2
to be nervous
to be nervous
at show and tell.
at show and tell.
Children are meant to be seen and not heard.
Children are meant to be seen and not heard.
You're not allowed to have a voice.
You're not allowed to have a voice.
Never mind a strong voice.
Never mind a strong voice.
No wonder I was nervous at 20.
No wonder I was nervous at 20.
That 20-year-old presentation at uni,
That 20-year-old presentation at uni,
that shaky, nervous voice,
that shaky, nervous voice,
I can still feel it in my throat,
I can still feel it in my throat,
making other people uncomfortable,
making other people uncomfortable,
releasing that nervous feeling in my throat.
releasing that nervous feeling in my throat.
I wonder what it'll feel like to let it go.
I wonder what it would feel like to let it go.
I wonder what it would be like to have a strong voice.
I wonder what it would be like to have a strong voice.
But that's not my family's philosophy.
But that's not my family's philosophy.
But maybe it can be mine.
But maybe it can be mine.
I wonder if I can let go of my family's philosophy.
I wonder if I can let go of my family's philosophy.
That 20-year-old experience,
That 20-year-old experience,
the remaining nervousness in my throat,
the remaining nervousness in my throat,
the remaining shakiness in my throat,
the remaining shakiness in my throat,
making other people uncomfortable,
making other people uncomfortable,
not allowed to have a strong voice,
not allowed to have a strong voice,
my family's beliefs,
my family's beliefs,
their philosophy,
Their philosophy.
Seen and not heard.
Seen and not heard.
I wonder what it'd feel like to have a strong voice.
I wonder what it'd feel like to have a strong voice.
Okay, so take a deep breath. So when you think about that now, that 20-year-old experience,
Yeah, it's more difficult to find. So,
and what about the feeling in your throat?
yeah, there's still a minor tightness there, but the association with the giving a talk is less.
Mhm.
In fact,
Okay, so what about the aspect of making other people uncomfortable?
Yeah, that's still there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
So even though there's still some of my family's philosophy stuck in my throat,
there is still some of my family's philosophy stuck in my throat,
making other people feel uncomfortable.
making other people feel uncomfortable.
Everybody's probably really uncomfortable in the room right now,
Everybody's probably really uncomfortable in the room right now,
even though they're all smiling.
even though they're all smiling.
I accept myself
I accept myself
and the remaining feeling in my throat
and the remaining feeling in my throat,
that I'm making other people uncomfortable.
that I'm making other people uncomfortable.
That remaining scratchy feeling. Is that what it's? Is it scratchy?
Tight feeling.
Tight feeling. See what I asked. That remaining tight feeling
That remaining tight feeling
that's still in my throat.
that's still in my throat.
My throat's processing and releasing my family's philosophy.
My throat is processing and releasing my family's philosophy.
Releasing and letting it go.
Releasing and letting it go.
It might be safe to have a strong voice.
It might be safe to have a strong voice.
It might be safe to be seen and not heard.
It might be safe to be seen and not heard.
I wonder what that would feel like.
I wonder what that would feel like.
Letting go of the remaining learned pattern
Letting go of the remaining learned pattern
that belongs to my family
that belongs to my family.
of being seen and not heard.
Of being seen and not heard.
It might be safe to have a strong voice
It might be safe to have a strong voice
as I release the remaining tight feeling in my throat.
as I release the remaining tight feeling in my throat.
Maybe they're not feeling uncomfortable.
Maybe they're not feeling uncomfortable.
Releasing the remaining feeling in my throat
Releasing the remaining feeling in my throat.
that I'm making other people uncomfortable.
That I'm making other people uncomfortable.
Releasing the tightness in my throat
Releasing the tightness in my throat.
as I give that uni presentation.
As I give that uni presentation.
See how her body's looking really calm now? Giving that uni presentation
Giving that uni presentation
with a strong voice.
with a strong voice.
Okay, so how's that?
Yeah, good.
Did you see the peacefulness coming over it as she's like going there and thinking about it? So when you think about now, so this is part of the testing procedure, thinking about grade 2
Yes.
and having to do show and tell. Anything landing in your body when you think about that?
No.
And what about 20?
In 20, the only thing that comes up is this responsibility. I'm taking responsibility for others to make them feel comfortable. So that's the only thing that comes
So
up.
see how that's a new aspect now? So even though I've released my family's philosophy, maybe I just have to release now
maybe I just have to release now
that feeling of responsibility.
that feeling of responsibility.
I accept myself
I accept myself
deeply and completely.
deeply and completely.
That feeling of responsibility.
That feeling of responsibility,
So where are you feeling that feeling of responsibility?
probably more in the chest.
Yeah, that feeling of responsibility.
That feeling of responsibility
It's trapped in my chest.
trapped in my chest.
That feeling of responsibility.
That feeling of responsibility
Trapped in my chest.
trapped in my chest.
So responsibility for what?
Responsibility for others.
Yeah, all that
For how they feel.
responsibility
All that responsibility
for how others feel.
for how others feel.
Trapped in my chest.
Trapped in my chest.
Responsibility
Responsibility
for how others are feeling.
for how others are feeling.
Trapped in my chest.
Trapped in my chest.
I'm ready to let it go.
I'm ready to let it go.
Releasing the responsibility for others
Releasing the responsibility for others
and how they're feeling
and how they're feeling.
out of my chest.
Out of my chest.
Take a deep breath. How does that feel now?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot less
Yeah. Cool.
less care.
Yeah. Yeah, they can feel what they want.
Whatever.
Whatever. Excellent. Good. Thank you for letting us demonstrate exact words.
Thank you.
Thank you.